planet of Zyphra lay in ruins. Fires burned along the horizon, and the jagged remains of towers scratched the red sky. Varsha, the female war chief of the Zypherans, stood on a high cliff overlooking the battlefield. Her armor glinted faintly in the dim light, and her eyes, sharp as blades, scanned the destruction below. For centuries, her people had known peace only through fear. The Zypherans had conquered all neighboring worlds, leaving legends that they were unstoppable. Yet today there was a strange unease in her chest. A horn sounded in the distance. Far across the valley, a small alien delegation approached. They were not from her fleet nor her allies. They came from the northern enclaves far removed from her capital. The delegation carried a sealed container, wrapped in layers of strange alloys and protective charms. The Zypherans, despite their strength, believed they had seen every kind of life in the galaxy. Yet the leader of the delegation spoke in a hushed tone. "We bring something impossible, something thought lost to time." Varsha's heart skipped. Impossible. That word struck deep within her. Humans. She had heard of them only in old tales, whispered by survivors of the ancient wars. The humans had been fierce, clever, and dangerous. They had disappeared from the galaxy 2 centuries ago, destroyed by Zypheran fire and strategy. Every archive, every history record declared humanity extinct, and now, someone claimed they had returned. The delegation reached her cliffside. They knelt, presenting the container. Its metal was smooth but old, covered in scratches as if it had traveled countless light years. Varsha examined it, noting the human symbols etched faintly on its surface. Symbols she thought she would never see again. Slowly she lifted the lid. Inside was a child, small and frail but alive. Its chest rose and fell steadily, and its eyes, bright and wide, looked up at her with no fear. The child blinked slowly, taking in the vast armored figure before it. Varsha felt her knees weaken. The impossible was real. How? Varsha whispered, her voice trembling. She remembered the stories of humans, how they could survive against odds that no other species could endure. She remembered the legends of humans sneaking into enemy strongholds, overturning entire armies and vanishing again without a trace. This tiny being was the proof that humanity had survived despite everything. The child's gaze met hers, curious but calm. Varsha noticed its hands, small, delicate, but holding a strength in their grip she could almost feel. Something stirred in her, a mixture of awe, fear, and something she had not felt in centuries, hope. She ordered the delegation to leave the child in her care, warning them that any trick would not be tolerated. Once they departed, Varsha turned her attention fully to the human. She knelt to its level, her massive frame casting a shadow over the small figure. "What is your name?" she asked, her voice soft but commanding. The child tilted its head, considering the question. Finally, it spoke in a clear, melodic tone. "Eli." Varsha's mind raced. 2 centuries had passed since the last human vanished, and now here was one, small but unmistakably human, standing in her presence. She wondered how it had survived, hidden among the stars. Over the next few days, Varsha observed Eli. The child was curious, exploring the fortress with a careful intelligence. It watched the Zypheran warriors train, memorizing their movements with sharp, quick eyes. It learned to manipulate tools, to move quietly, and even to anticipate the soldiers' actions before they happened. Each skill reminded Varsha of the legends she had once feared. Humans were not just survivors. They were adaptable, clever, and brave beyond measure. Varsha could not ignore the whispers among her advisors. "Chief, what if this human is a spy?" they asked. "What if it brings the old human's fury upon us?" Varsha listened, but she saw something different in Eli. Despite its size, its courage was unmatched. It had no fear of her or her guards. It moved with a calm determination, watching everything, learning quickly and never faltering. Varsha began to realize that Eli was not here by accident. Humans had a way of surviving where no one expected, of turning impossible odds into victory. One night, while the stars shone cold and distant above the cliff, Varsha approached Eli alone. The child was sitting quietly, gazing at the sky. "You have survived long, little one," she said. Eli looked up, meeting her eyes. "I survived because I must," Eli said simply. "Humans, they do not give up." Varsha felt a shiver run down her spine. That simple sentence carried centuries of courage, determination, and hope. She remembered how humans had changed history, how their small numbers had defeated armies 10 times their size. Eli was no different. Already in this alien world, the human spirit shone brightly. In the following weeks, Varsha tested Eli. She placed the child in difficult situations, challenges that would have overwhelmed any normal being of its size and age. But Eli always adapted, using quick thinking, observation, and intelligence to succeed. Even the Zifferan warriors began to whisper, "The human. It is extraordinary." Word reached distant warlords that Varsha had found a human. Some saw it as a threat, others as a curiosity. Alliances shifted. Enemies began plotting, unsure whether to attack or watch. Varsha realized that Eli's presence could reshape her entire world. But she also understood that the child was not a weapon in the traditional sense. Eli's strength was not just in power but in mind and courage, the essence of humanity itself. One evening, Varsha and Eli watched a sunset together from the cliff. The sky blazed with red and orange, and the fires of past battles still glimmered below. "Chief Varsha," Eli said, "humans do not only fight. We protect, we learn, we endure. Even when everything seems lost, we try." Varsha looked at the child, a mixture of respect and awe in her eyes. She realized that humanity had not ended. It had survived, hidden and patient. And now, in this distant corner of the galaxy, the human spark had returned. Her heart, hardened over centuries of war, softened. She whispered, "Perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps humans were never truly destroyed." As the stars emerged above, Eli's eyes reflected them, bright and unwavering. Varsha knew that her life, and perhaps the fate of Zephyra itself, had changed forever. This small human offered as a gift to her was more than she could have imagined. It was a reminder that even in a universe of conquerors and destroyers, courage and hope could never be truly extinguished. And so, the impossible had arrived. A human had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. The days passed quickly on Zephyra. Varsha watched Eli closely, amazed at how the small human adapted to life among the Zifferans. Eli learned the language with remarkable speed, understood complex strategies, and observed every detail of the alien society. Varsha had expected curiosity and intelligence, but she had not expected wisdom beyond its years. Rumors of Eli's presence spread across Zephyra. Some Zifferan warriors whispered in awe, others in fear. "A human can survive here? Impossible," they said. Yet the child continued to explore, learn, and quietly influence those around it. Varsha could feel a shift happening. The human's courage and cleverness were inspiring even her most loyal soldiers. One morning, alarms blared across the fortress. Distant fleets appeared on the horizon, sleek and menacing. Rival warlords, having heard of Eli, were approaching, likely to test the child's abilities, or perhaps to destroy what they did not understand. Varsha's heart did not race with fear as it would have in the past. Instead, she felt a sense of curious anticipation. "Eli," she said, kneeling before the child, "they are coming. Do you understand what this means?" Eli nodded calmly. "It means we will show them that humans are not defeated. That courage and cleverness can turn the tide even against stronger enemies." Varsha smiled faintly. The child spoke with confidence that matched centuries of human legend. She realized that Eli did not just survive. Eli led. The rival fleet approached, their ships forming tight formations, weapons ready. Varsha's generals turned to her, seeking orders. She gave them a choice: fight as usual with brute force or follow Eli's guidance. The generals hesitated, unsure if a child could provide a plan worthy of a war chief. Eli stepped forward, unafraid of the massive Zifferan officers surrounding it. "We can win," it said simply. "But we must be smart. We must use their expectations against them." Varsha allowed it. She trusted her instincts, and her instincts told her that humans never wasted opportunity. Eli studied the enemy formation, pointing out weaknesses that no Zephyran commander would have noticed. Using speed, misdirection, and the natural terrain, Eli instructed Varsha's fleet on how to outmaneuver the rivals. The Zifferan generals followed reluctantly, but soon the strategy began to work. Ships moved in sudden, precise patterns. The enemy was confused, miscalculating the human-led maneuvers. One by one, rival ships were forced to retreat, their weapons rendered useless by clever traps and strategic positioning. Varsha watched, amazed. Her fortress had not only survived, under Eli's direction it had repelled an entire attacking fleet without losing a single ship. Even the hardened warriors whispered in astonishment. After the battle, Varsha stood beside Eli on the cliff overlooking the field. Smoke rose from distant wrecks, but the fortress remained untouched. She studied the child closely. "Yuki led them," she said softly. "You directed a victory that could have taken centuries of planning." Eli shrugged. "I only did what humans have always done. We see opportunity, we adapt, and we act." Varsha nodded. She had seen it in the old stories, but seeing it in person was different. Humans were more than clever. They were fearless, resourceful, and capable of inspiring others to rise above their limits. News of the victory spread quickly. Distant warlords who had hoped to attack now paused, uncertain of the new power Varsha commanded. Some approached seeking alliances. Others watched carefully, learning that a human had returned to the galaxy and was changing the balance of power in ways no one could have predicted. Varsha realized that Eli's presence was more than a miracle. It was a turning point. The human child had demonstrated that intelligence, courage, and moral strength could overcome sheer force. The Zifferans, proud and strong as they were, had always relied on fear. Eli showed that respect, cleverness, and courage could inspire loyalty even more than intimidation. Over the next weeks, Varsha allowed Eli to engage with her people. The child observed training sessions, offered suggestions, and quietly helped soldiers improve their techniques. Zifferans noticed their own performance improving under Eli's guidance. Even the gruffest veterans began to show respect, acknowledging that the human had a mind unlike any they had seen before. Varsha herself spent hours with Eli, teaching the child about Zifferan history, culture, and warfare. In return, Eli shared observations about humans, strategies they had used centuries ago, and lessons about adaptability and resilience. Varsha realized that while she had been the war chief for decades, she was learning from a being much smaller than herself. One evening, the two of them stood atop the fortress wall, watching a new sun rise over Zephyra's barren landscape. "Chief Varsha," Eli said, "humans survive because we do not quit. We do not wait for others to save us. We create solutions even when everything seems hopeless." Varsha looked at the child, admiration and respect in her eyes. "You remind me of everything humans were said to be," she admitted. "Clever, brave, relentless. Perhaps we were wrong to think your species was gone forever." Eli smiled faintly. "We never truly vanish, Chief. Our spirit endures even in hiding. That is what makes us human." As the sun climbed higher, Varsha felt something shift within her. She had always relied on strength, fear, and dominance to lead. But now she understood that true power came from courage, wisdom, and the ability to inspire others. Eli had reminded her of that lesson, and in doing so, had changed the course of her life, and possibly the future of Zephira itself. The galaxy would hear of humans again, though not through fear or destruction. It would hear of humans through bravery, intelligence, and hope. And Varsha, the war chief who had once thought humanity ended centuries ago, would be the one to witness its return. As the day ended, Varsha stood beside Eli and made a decision. She would protect this human, nurture its growth, and allow its spirit to influence the Zifferans. It was no longer just a child offered as a gift. It was a symbol of enduring courage and potential, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the universe, hope and humanity could never truly be destroyed. Eli looked up at the stars and Varsha followed its gaze. Somewhere among the infinite points of light, humans had survived, waiting for the right moment to return. And now, in her care, humanity had returned, not as conquerors, but as a spark of brilliance, courage, and resilience. The impossible had become reality. A human had survived, a human had inspired, and the galaxy, once ruled by fear, would never forget the lesson of courage and hope that this small being had brought to life.